We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for.
The left often portrays itself as America's moral compass, righteous, enlightened, and always on the right side of history. But Bill Maher isn't convinced. A lifelong liberal, he's become one of his own side's harshest critics, exposing the hypocrisy and self-delusion that he believes are eating away at the movement. Maher argues that what was once a proud liberal tradition grounded in truth and reason has now descended into tribalism and outrage. And what he says next is a truth bomb that sends the so-called truth police scrambling for cover.
And I don't completely believe any of it. Not right away, not until I check it out. And when I ask, is it true? Usually the answer turns out to be, well, sort of. Or yes, but, yeah. See, we've all become very adept at saying things that are technically true but lack context, or that leave out half the story. So if we're going to ban untruth, does that include the half-truth, the quarter-truth? And wait, don't the wokest people in the world believe that what really matters is your truth?
I'm with Maher on this one. If the left wants to act as the self-proclaimed truth police, then we have to ask, what kind of truth are they really defending? It's easy to champion truth when it supports your beliefs and makes you look righteous. But the real test comes when that truth challenges your own side, your leaders, or your sacred ideas. That's usually when honesty disappears. Maher's point hits hard. Truth shouldn't have a political side. You can't claim to defend facts while silencing the ones that make you uncomfortable. Either you stand for truth wherever it leads, or you're just selling propaganda with better branding.
People ask me all the time, why haven't you ever had Hillary or Bill Clinton on? Why didn't you have Kamala on during the last campaign? You think we don't ask? We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for.
The left loves to call itself the guardian of truth, cracking down on lies and misinformation. But Bill Maher says the real danger begins when truth gets twisted to fit a political agenda. When facts are cherry-picked to protect ideology or silence dissent, it's no longer truth policing, it's truth manipulation. Maher warns that the left has shifted from open debate to enforcing conformity, deciding which version of the truth people are allowed to hear. And that, he says, is the most dangerous form of censorship, one disguised as moral righteousness.
And so should it be in the digital town square. And so should bots and deep fakes be banned and anything else that aren't really the people who say they are. But that's an entirely different thing than actual people expressing an opinion as repugnant or offensive or as misguided as some opinions may be. This is still America, where people have the right to express what they think, including to be wrong, to lie, and yes, the right to be an asshole. And if you think you know everything and no one else could possibly have some other truth, you should be glad for that protection, because you're an asshole.
Free speech isn't just a privilege in America. It's the foundation of democracy. Everyone has the right to speak, even if their views are unpopular. But that freedom also invites debate and scrutiny, because truth grows through open dialogue, not silence. Too much control leads to censorship. Too little breeds chaos. Free speech was never meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be real and challenging. The moment we silence voices in the name of protection, we start erasing the very freedom that defines America.
But 41% of Democrats last year believed the hospitalization rate if you got COVID unvaccinated was over 50%, when it was actually less than 1%. Somebody's misinformation got to those people. Sometimes misinformation is just history's first draft. I see a lot of things on social media and also on old media.
Maher hasn't held back on criticizing the DNC's COVID response. He argues that the party preaching, "Trust the science," often pushed selective truths, labeling anyone who questioned mandates as ignorant or dangerous. Maher claims the media exaggerated data to shame dissenters, noting that less than 1% of the unvaccinated were hospitalized. To him, it exposed how political messaging replaced real science, turning information into manipulation disguised as virtue.
Washington Post recently got embroiled in a self-inflicted storm when one of their best reporters, David Weigel, retweeted this joke. "Every girl is bi. You just have to figure out if it's polar or neutral." The comedian who actually wrote the tweet called it a banal throwaway joke, which is exactly what it is. Throwaway, as in if you don't like it, throw it away. For eons, both have made jokes about how the other is crazy, and no one but the perpetually offended thinks it means anything more than that the sexes get frustrated over how differently we each see the world. And yes, we relieve some of that frustration with humor and scene.
That's the problem. The woke crowd seems offended by everything. Jokes, poems, even old movies are suddenly problematic. Comedy, once a refuge for free expression, now lives in fear of cancellation. Comedians censor themselves, and humor is being sanitized. Ironically, it proves Maher's point. When everything's offensive, nothing's funny, and when laughter dies, truth becomes untouchable.
Weigel pulled down his retweet and wrote, "I apologize and did not mean to cause any harm," and that was the end of that. I'm joking, of course. The unlicensed daycare center that is today's newsroom went ape. You see, the Post has another writer named Felicia Sonmez, and she's a lot. For example, she tweeted about Kobe Bryant's 2003 rape trial hours after his helicopter crash. And despite the fact that she says Dave Weigel is a good friend, she resurrected the tweet he had taken down with a screenshot and demanded to know what the Post was going to do about this unacceptable evil that must not be allowed to stand. Sarcastically writing, "Fantastic to work at a news outlet where tweets like this are allowed." Yes, could you imagine a world that allows jokes you don't like?
The worst thing about cancel culture is that it's never satisfied with an apology. You can delete the post and beg for forgiveness, but the mob doesn't want remorse. It wants destruction. One joke or old tweet can ruin your career, reputation, and life. It's no longer about accountability. It's about control and silencing dissent. As Maher warns, when outrage becomes entertainment and forgiveness disappears, society doesn't progress. It eats itself, one cancellation at a time.
Of course, the leadership at the Post folded like a Miami condo and suspended Weigel without pay for a month and denounced the offending retweet as a gross violation of their values, free speech apparently not being one of them. Then a third Post reporter offered up the idea, of course on Twitter, because why do anything privately, that, hey, maybe everyone was overreacting and we should all just calm down. And then it was really on. Felicia demanded that the Post discipline him and tweeted about that. I assume she's tweeting about this right now.
This is why cancel culture must be stopped. It has no limits or sense of proportion. What begins as accountability turns into a witch hunt against anyone who thinks differently, or even stays silent. Guilt by association rules, and people live in fear of being next. It's a cycle of moral hysteria that kills open dialogue and replaces honesty with intimidation.
For days, she raged with the fire of 1,000 burning bras. Sending a gazillion tweets calling for more to be done against Weigel, mocking her bosses, attacking colleagues, and letting the world know how much the Washington Post sucked. And this endless bickering and infighting continued online in public view until the bell rang and they all went to seventh period. Now, note that I haven't yet told you what age Felicia Sonmez and her quarreling coworkers are. Why? Because I didn't have to. Because you can't imagine someone my age acting like this in an office.
The woke crowd seems to forget that people can change and grow. One old joke or mistake becomes a lifelong label, with no room for context or forgiveness. They ignore that who you were at 20 isn't who you are at 40. To them, only present-day moral purity matters. As Maher points out, treating growth like a crime and forgiveness like weakness isn't just exhausting, it's deeply un-American.
The New York Times just ran an op-ed entitled, "Why Are We Still Governed by Baby Boomers?" This is why. Because too many millennials are overly sensitive, overly fragile, and have no sense of priorities. You know, I'm sure many boomers would love to retire, but they can't. They're like the grandmother who'd much rather be watching Judge Judy, but has to raise her grandkids because her own kids are too f***ed up to manage it.
In the end, Maher's message is simple but powerful. Truth shouldn't be partisan, and free speech isn't negotiable. The left's obsession with moral policing and cancel culture is silencing honest voices and killing open debate. Comedy fades, conversation dies, and conformity takes over. Maher may be controversial, but he's one of the few willing to challenge his own side. Real progress comes from facing uncomfortable truths, not silencing them. That's the America worth defending, one that values dialogue over dogma and forgiveness over fury.